Welcome back to MIRA University. I'm your host AJ, and today we're going to be diving into the world of sheltering in place.
Fire season is now officially the worst ever reported.
So why might we need to shelter in place? Well, in today's world, there are multiple scenarios going on that may drive us to shelter in place. For example, we may experience a natural disaster, we may experience a national emergency, or a combination of the two. For example, an earthquake may make it hard for first responders to get out to where they need to be, and we may need to provide for ourselves in the time being. So what kind of events may drive us to need to shelter in place? Well, first and foremost, natural disasters are at the top of the list. For example, with the growing wildfires in the US and across the globe, fires may cut off a decent escape route, or they may trap us inside of a structure. This would definitely drive us to shelter in place, as we need to sustain ourselves until first responders can make their way out to us. Additionally, with hurricanes growing in power, size, and frequency, they are an ever-looming threat that affects all of us, not just people on the coast, as the resulting effects from hurricanes can drive large storms inwards. Seaborne events can also drive us to shelter in place, whether it be a nerve agent attack, a nuclear weapon, a dirty bomb, or any variety of other seaborne agents. We undoubtedly want to be away from them and somewhere safe. We also need to be in a space where we can decontaminate as well. Unfortunately, the world that we live in has also seen the rise in active shooters in all areas of life. When we encounter an active shooter, the first thing we need to do is put distance between ourselves and them. Sometimes there is not a clear route of escape, therefore we must batten down the hatches and be safe in a small enclosed space. The first thing we need to do is select the structure that we are going to shelter in place in. It's important to know if your place of work, home, school, or wherever else you operate is rated to withstand the threat. For example, many government buildings are hardened against nuclear threats. Many structures that are in the Midwest are hardened against tornadoes, and on the coast for hurricanes. It's important to know this information. After selecting our structure, the first thing we want to do is check for any signs of contamination or weaknesses in security. Depending on what the threat is, it is critical to make sure that we shut off all fans, anything inside of the room that may be making noise or circulating air. Additionally, we want to make sure that we cover up the windows, seal any kind of HVAC, utilities, or vents, and also ensure that we are blocking any kind of gap between the door or the windows. Ideally, we want to use something like plastic sheeting, as it is readily available, easy to cut, and something that we'll want to store in our kit, which we'll get to shortly. Additionally, if you don't have any towels available or something like that to clog up any gaps in the door, we can use something as simple as a piece of clothing or a hoodie. Works just as well. The reason that we want to make sure that we're securing all sources of air circulation and all gaps in the door is if we are facing any kind of an airborne threat, whether it be seaborne related or other, we want to make sure that that kind of contaminant is not making it into our shelter, as we may need to stay there for a long time and we don't know when help is coming. On that note, it is also critically important to touch upon your rescue response. When first responders get to you, if it's an active shooter, you want to approach law enforcement with nothing in your hands, showing that you are not a threat, and comply with all of their instructions when they give them to you. If you rush first responders, you may find yourself as a secondary casualty. We do not want that. When first responders arrive, they are not going to know if you are contaminated or pose a threat to them, and may need to take extra precautions to subdue you or get you to a quarantine or decontamination site. Make their job easy and just comply with whatever instructions they deliver to you. Now that we've selected our shelter-in-place location and secured it, we want to ensure that we have with us a comprehensive shelter-in-place bag. So we've already covered having plastic sheeting and having something to block gaps underneath doors and windows. We want to make sure that we have with us an ample supply of food and water. A very convenient option is the Meal Ready to Eat, or MRE. Some of you may be familiar with these, as some of you may have been forced to eat the veggie omelet like yours truly, but there are actually a decent selection of options that aren't too bad. These are very dense with calories, last a very long time, and rationing them can go pretty far. Some other food options to consider besides MREs are canned goods and freeze-dried meals. Keep in mind though, freeze-dried meals require water to cook. Most importantly, in our kit, we need to make sure that we have clean drinking water and plenty of it. While we can ration food, it is inadvisable to ever ration water. Also in our kit, we want to make sure that we have a comprehensive first aid kit, including a tourniquet for any secondary injuries. We want to make sure that we also have with us a Geiger counter so that way we can measure levels of radiation outside if we are encountering a nuclear threat, so that we know what we're exposed to and if it is okay to go outside when directed by authorities. Additionally, we want to make sure that we have a good set of matches with us, as we're not sure where the situation's going to take us and we might need a fire to cook. We also want to make sure that in our shelter-in-place kits, we have all of our survival gear if we have to move. Some other items that we might want to have with us. So you can build your kit however you see fit, but these are some of the standard recommendations. First and foremost, safety glasses, always a must. Never know when you're going to need them. Paper maps. In the state of a national emergency, we may not have access to cell phone coverage, and we may not have our GPS available, so we need to know how to get around if we're going to move. As always, handy dandy flashlight. If we are experiencing a national emergency, we may not have electricity, and we're going to need to see. A collapsible shovel. In addition to having a multitude of uses, your shovel can also act as a self-defense item if needed. Hopefully you won't need that. Additionally, important items to have with us: sanitary items and a can opener. Don't forget, in a survival situation, we might be eating an awful lot of canned food, and it's kind of tough to get into without a can opener. We also want to make sure that we are carrying with us a decent pair of dust masks. We never know what we're going to encounter. A little bit of iodine, not just for cleaning, but variety of other uses, and sterilization of water sometimes. Another great item to have with us is going to be baby formula. Not just for babies, but you may need to eat it too. And the tried and true duct tape. It does pretty much anything, so make sure that you have it with you. And last but not least, we recommend batteries. I don't know about you, but pretty much any time that I need batteries, I don't have them lying around and I have to run out. In this situation we're sheltering in place, we don't have that option, so make sure you brought them with you already. In addition to all of this, it's also advisable to carry with you a toolkit, as again, we don't know what we're going to encounter or what we may need to work with. Also recommended: soap, hand sanitizer, buckets for water, as we may need to collect that water, and any other items that you might see fit for your own comfort or items that you find useful. At the onset of beginning to shelter in place, make sure that all of your electronics are charged, like your cell phone, anything else you might need. It's also advisable to make sure that you have all of your chargers packed with you. While we might not know if the electricity is going to stay on, we do want to make sure that we have all of our devices ready to go if we need to use them. Depending on the threat we're facing, we also want to make sure that not only do we have a cleaning bucket, a kiddie pool is also advisable if we're going to be doing some form of decon as directed by officials. A few other items to consider including in your kit are a hand crank emergency radio, blankets, a fire extinguisher, and any necessary prescription medications you or your family may need. While no kit can be completely comprehensive for every emergency situation, having these items ready to go will help make your shelter in place more effective and comfortable.
Your compliance with the shelter-in-place directive is crucial to mitigating potential risks and safeguarding lives.
It's important to note when constructing our bag and packing it. This may seem like common sense, but if we're not ready, we might be rushing. So let's do a couple good practices here. Let's make sure that we are packing our heaviest items on the bottom. So that's going to be our water, things like an MRE, anything that's hard that's going to let the softer materials and items rest on the top and not be damaged. Now, all this to say, once we have everything packed away and everything is neatly stored, a tip that I like to use anytime I am storing my items, I like to ensure that I leave last my first aid kit. It's just a little thing, but in case of an emergency, I need to reach for my bag. I want to make sure that the very first thing that I'm going to see is my first aid kit, because chances are if I'm diving for this, we might need this. All right, and here we have it, our fully packed shelter-in-place bag. Thanks for attending MIRA University with us today. Remember to like, subscribe, and share for more. Until next time, stay savvy, survivalists.